The Voyage of the Titanic, a tale of ambition and tragedy. In the early 20th century, as the world raced toward modernization, one project stood out as the crowning achievement of human ambition: the RMS Titanic. It was a ship like no other, a marvel of engineering and luxury that symbolized humanity's unrelenting desire to conquer nature. Yet, it was also a stark reminder of how fragile even the grandest human creations can be in the face of nature's unpredictable power. The dream begins. The Titanic was the brainchild of the White Star Line, a prestigious shipping company eager to outdo its competitors in the race for dominance on the transatlantic route. Designed by Thomas Andrews and built in the shipyards of Belfast, Northern Ireland, the Titanic was hailed as the ship of dreams. At 882 feet long and over 46,000 tons in weight, it was the largest moving object ever built by human hands at that time. Its grandeur was unimaginable, a floating palace boasting luxurious cabins, opulent dining rooms, Turkish baths, a swimming pool, and even a grand staircase that seemed to ascend to the heavens. The ship's builders and owners claimed that it was practically unsinkable. The Titanic featured 16 watertight compartments, designed to keep it afloat even if up to 4 of them were breached. This revolutionary design led many to believe that the ship could never fall to disaster, a notion that would soon prove tragically false. The passengers and their hopes. On April 10, 1912, the Titanic set sail from Southampton, England, bound for New York City. Aboard the ship were over 2,200 souls from all walks of life. The wealthiest passengers included names like John Jacob Astor IV, Benjamin Guggenheim, and Isidor Straus. In the lavish first-class cabins, they enjoyed fine dining, live music, and endless entertainment. In contrast, down in the third-class compartments, immigrants from various countries huddled together, filled with hope for a new life in America. These passengers might not have had access to the luxuries of the upper decks, but the Titanic still represented a beacon of opportunity for them, a vessel to carry their dreams across the Atlantic. Icebergs in the night. On the night of April 14, 4 days into the voyage, the Titanic sailed smoothly through the North Atlantic. The sea was calm, almost eerily so. Captain Edward Smith, who had planned to retire after the voyage, had been warned of icebergs in the area but believed that the ship's speed, combined with its reinforced hull, would allow them to bypass any danger. After all, the Titanic was unsinkable, or so everyone thought. At around 11:40 p.m., Frederick Fleet, one of the lookouts in the Crow's Nest, spotted something in the distance, an iceberg directly in the ship's path. He rang the warning bell and alerted the bridge. First Officer William Murdoch ordered the ship to turn sharply to avoid the collision, but it was too late. The Titanic's starboard side scraped against the iceberg, and though the impact seemed minor to many aboard, the consequences were catastrophic. The fall of the unsinkable. Unbeknownst to most of the passengers, the iceberg had caused fatal damage below the waterline, puncturing 6 of the ship's watertight compartments. Water began to flood the lower sections of the vessel at an alarming rate. Thomas Andrews, the ship's architect, quickly realized the gravity of the situation. The Titanic was doomed. It could stay afloat with 4 flooded compartments, but not 6. Within hours, the ship would be at the bottom of the ocean. Panic slowly began to spread as the crew started to lower the lifeboats. Despite the chaos, there was no full understanding of the severity of the situation among the passengers. Many still believed that the ship would survive. This complacency, combined with a shortage of lifeboats only enough for about half of the passengers and crew, meant that many lifeboats were launched only partially filled. As the minutes turned into hours, the ship's bow dipped lower and lower into the icy water. Women and children were given priority for the lifeboats, while many men were left behind to face their fate. Some of the wealthiest men in the world, like John Jacob Astor and Benjamin Guggenheim, accepted their end with quiet dignity. Guggenheim, dressed in his finest clothes, was heard saying, "We've dressed up in our best and are prepared to go down like gentlemen." The final hours. At around 2:20 a.m. on April 15, the unthinkable happened. The Titanic broke apart, its stern lifting high into the air before the ship split in two. Moments later, the great vessel disappeared beneath the surface of the Atlantic. Those still aboard were plunged into the freezing waters, where hypothermia would claim the lives of nearly all within minutes. For hours, the survivors in the lifeboats floated in stunned silence, listening to the cries of those left behind, the eerie wails gradually fading into the cold night. It wasn't until around 4 a.m. that the RMS Carpathia arrived, having received the Titanic's distress calls. The Carpathia's crew rescued the 705 survivors, but more than 1,500 souls had been lost, making the sinking of the Titanic one of the deadliest maritime disasters in history. The aftermath and legacy. The sinking of the Titanic sent shockwaves around the world. People were left grappling with how such a disaster could happen to a ship that had been deemed unsinkable. Investigations were launched on both sides of the Atlantic to determine the cause of the tragedy, leading to new maritime safety regulations. These included requirements for sufficient lifeboats, mandatory lifeboat drills, and improved iceberg monitoring systems. But beyond the technical lessons learned, the Titanic became a symbol of hubris, an example of how overconfidence in human achievements can lead to disaster. It was a tragedy that transcended class, race, and nationality, touching the hearts of people everywhere. Even today, more than a century later, the story of the Titanic continues to captivate the world, reminding us of both the grandeur and the fragility of human ambition. Epilogue: The ship that never dies. Though the Titanic now rests at the bottom of the Atlantic, 12,000 feet below the surface, its legacy endures. In 1985, when Dr. Robert Ballard and his team discovered the wreck, the world was once again reminded of the ship's tragic tale. The eerie images of the decaying vessel, frozen in time, reignited a fascination with the Titanic that has never waned. To this day, the story of the Titanic remains one of the most compelling sagas in history, a story of dreams, ambition, tragedy, and the enduring human spirit in the face of disaster. The ship of dreams may have sunk, but its story will forever float in the waters of history, reminding us that even the mightiest can fall.